First and foremost, I want to give all praise, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harakaha Kodash, and double honors unto the apostles and elders of GMS Great Millstone, and a sincere shalom to Yakim, bringing out this word in diligence and in truth. What I have here is a video I found off of TikTok. Scrolled across it, a little bit ago, and it said Floyd Schofield Sr. admits to practicing magic for when, like question mark. And so I'm gonna let this video play and then I'm gonna get into it, because Jake, they seek towards, these familiar spirits, these witches, these warlock ways, in order to gain fame, in order to gain money, in order to gain the quote unquote riches or status of this world, man. And Jake has always been doing this, right? But it just goes to show you that even in everything we watch, you have to be mindful of what you're watching, and then also understanding that what we're seeing, there's always a spiritual note to everything, man. Now this dude on the right is a boxer. He just had his fight and he won by knockout, but I want to allow this to play to get to the point of the lesson. See, and that's the thing. Jake opens themselves up into these, these wicked demonic spirits, because what he was speaking of is essentially channeling, man, right? Asking a particular spirit to enter into your vessel, man. Which that's, part of witchcraft. When you take a look at the account of King Saul, going into the Witch of Endor, that was a form of channeling. When we hear about the accounts of demonic possession, that's ultimately evil spirits, resting within that vessel, man. So he's telling you, they basically channeled the spirit into that boy since he was a young boy, right? To ultimately give him more strength, to have him have a monster spirit in the ring, man. And that's wickedness. When King David and his mighty men were fighting, they didn't have to channel, a spirit. They prayed unto Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, and the Lord allowed them to do the rest through the spirit, man. It wasn't by any wicked means. They didn't have to call upon a idol or a god of the heathen. No, they had faith, and they understood they were fighting for Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, and that's who we prayed unto, and that's how we were victorious within those wars, those armies, right? So the more nigh we got into Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, the more impossible it began to defeat us, man. That's why the further we're away, we're being destroyed, man. But here it is, even in our captivity, Jake is finding ways in order to get further and further away from their power, man. Right? Matter of fact, the scriptures say, it's like Lord, will I find it? Of idols. Worshiping, maybe worshiping. Yeah, Wisdom of Solomon 4. Oh, I'm right there. That's the spirit. This Wisdom of Solomon 14. I'm gonna start here at verse 22. It says, "Moreover, this was not enough for them, that they erred in the knowledge of Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai. Speaking of Jake, right? It says, but whereas they lived in the great war of ignorance, those so great plagues called they peace. For whilst they slew their children in sacrifices, or used secret ceremonies, or made revelings of strange rites. There it is. Revelings of strange rites is what? Is wicked rituals, man. It reminds me of that movie, it's with Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby, you know, and JJ Jimmy Walker, man. As Bootney Lee Farnsworth. You know, he was a boxer, and what did they do? They ultimately, hypnotized him so he can get into that beast state of mind, so to speak, man. That's just a lower form of witchcraft, ultimately. They put that watch in front of his face, you know, and they said whatever incantations, and then he was essentially activated. Well, here it is. We know that Jake gets wicked with these things. You know, they put their whole, you know, spirit into straight just idol worship, man. And even when the I didn't even know that was his father, if that's his actual father to the left, or technically to the right of him. But even by how he was speaking, I was like, this dude sounds like he's very effeminate, you know, almost moish, you know. But if that's his father, you know, whatever it be, but the dude they're both into witchcraft, man. And so I looked up, you know, where he's from as well, because I was like, wait, where, you know, just curious, because it's a scripture in the book of Hosea 4, right? And it speaks about, and I'm gonna grab it after this. It says, with that in mind, let's take a closer look at his background, his ethnicity, nationality, and deep-rooted connections to the Dominican Republic, right? Simeon. So Schofield is Simeon, man, right? He's a Simeonite, right? A so-called Dominican, right? So when we go into the book of Hosea 4, matter of fact, I'm gonna hold this in Acts 16. Lord willing, if my app act right, but right, there's Hosea 4 and 17, right? It says, Ephraim is joined to idols, let him alone, right? And we understand Ephraim, which is also a representation of the northern kingdom, right? They're heavy in idolatry, man. Very heavy in idolatry, right? It says sometimes used right here for the northern kingdom, right? Ephraim, also known as Israel, right? That's why the scripture will say Israel, when it's speaking of the northern kingdom. It's like when it's speaking of the southern and northern kingdom, it'll say Judah and Israel, right? Judah representing the three southern tribes, so-called Negroes, Haitians, and Benjamites, right? Or it's like Jamaicans, which are your Judites, Benjamites, and Levites, right? And then it'll say Israel for the northern kingdom tribes. But the scriptures tell us right there that what? Ephraim is joined unto idols, leave him alone. And not only is that the tribe of Ephraim, but that's really all the northern kingdom, and really all the tribes, because all Jake is within idolatry and worshiping idols. But the northern kingdom is in it very heavily. And when it said that he's of a Dominican background, we understand that the scripture says this. I believe it's Isaiah the 49th chapter, but I'm gonna just check. I mean Genesis 49, so like it. It says, Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. Right? So Simeon and Levi, Simeonites are so-called Dominicans, Levites, so-called Haitians, right? And it says, our brethren, instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. That instrument of cruelty goes into witchcraft, man. Witchcraft. Same way Jake always tries to uphold, Levi by saying, or the Haitians by saying what? Oh, well, they won that war against the French, the French Revolution. Yeah, but they did it by means of straight up witchcraft, man. Of straight up witchcraft. So knowing that he goes back to Simeon, and Simeon and Levi being on that same island, and knowing how deep Jake is within witchcraft, idolatry, serving these false gods, it makes sense as to why they would use, or he's basically trying to downplay it, saying it wasn't what it is, but through the spirit, he's performing witchcraft on his son, man. It's that simple, right? Channeling and possession. Jake is wicked as shit, man. Jake is wicked. This is Wisdom of Solomon 14:23. For whilst they slew their children in sacrifices, or used secret ceremonies, or made revelings of strange rites, they kept neither lives nor marriages any longer undefiled, but either one slew another traitorously, or grieved him by adultery. And I'm going to jump down into 27. For the worshipping of idols not to be named is the beginning, the cause, and the end of all evil. And Jake is within it heavy, man. Jake is within it heavy, right? I want to grab another precept coming from the book of Acts 16, because in this account, the word possessed is brought up, right? It's Acts 16, and I'm going to start here at 13. It says, and on the Sabbath we went out of the city by a riverside, where prayer was wont to be made, and we sat down and spake unto the woman which resorted thither. And a certain woman named Lydia, a seller of purple, of the city of Thyatira, which worshipped Yahweh, heard us, whose heart the Lord opened, that she attended unto the things which were spoken of Paul. And when she was baptized in her household, she besought us, saying, if ye have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come into my house and abide there. And she constrained us. And it came to pass, as we went to prayer, a certain damsel possessed with a spirit of divination met us. When you read in the 16th verse in the NLT, it says, one day as we were going down to the place of prayer, we met a demon-possessed slave girl. She was a fortune teller who earned a lot of money for her masters, right? So going back to KJV, it says, with a spirit of divination met us, which brought her masters much gain by soothsaying. But when you go into this word possessed, right? G2192, it says echo, right? It says to have, to hold, or to hold in the hand in the sense of wearing. To have hold possession of the mind refers to alarm, agitating emotions. To hold fast, keep. To have or comprise or involve in regard or consider or hold as. To own or possess, right? To be possessed, right? Possession of the mind, which is exactly what he was speaking about. Basically them putting that trance on him, allowing that demon to possess him to where he essentially, is blacked out in the ring. It's a demonic entity is possessing him in that ring, man. Right? It says, see if it's any more on this. It said possession of the mind or the emotions. And you heard him. He said after basically the trance was taken off of him, and he was crying, he had to come back to who he was. I want to just check to see if it's any more on this. It's pretty long, Salaki. All right, that's the point, right? But he was possessed, man. And Jake has no problem, giving themselves unto these demonic entities, as long as they're receiving, what they want physically. But ultimately what they're doing, that there's separation between them and their higher power, Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, and ultimately Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai is just going to bring forth destruction, judgment unto these individuals, right? So I'm going to close out with this in the book of Exodus 22. Right, because this type of thing is forbidden, especially amongst Israelites, man. Right, Jake picked up the ways of the heathen, of the people of Canaan, right, which were heavy witches, right, the Chaldeans, right. It's Exodus 22 and 18. It says, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. And it's that simple, man. You're giving yourself unto Satan, unto demons, man. But this is how Jake moves. This is how Jake moves. Hey, so with them, siding with these demonic powers, hey, Yahweh Shem Shai is gonna have a beautiful judgment for him, man. A beautiful judgment. So that's the point. Not to make it too lengthy, just to hit the topics. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying unto the body. I want to give all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harakah Kwadash. A double honors unto the apostles and elders of GMS Great Millstone, and a sincere shalom to Yakim, bringing out this word in diligence and in truth. Shalom.